You know that feeling, right? That particular brand of supermarket frustration when the one thing you absolutely need is perched precariously on the top shelf, mocking your less than Amazonian stature. Well, that was me last Tuesday at the big blue box store. My weekly grocery run was almost done, save for a crucial box of artisanal oat milk, naturally, the last one gleaming like a trophy from its lofty perch. I stood there doing that pathetic little tippy-toe jump reach, mentally cursing whoever designs these aisles for literal giants. I was mid-lunge when I spotted him, a veritable redwood of a man, easily 63 or more, browsing the organic produce with an almost serene calm. He seemed to glide, completely unbothered by the sheer physical space he occupied. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to swallow my pride. "Excuse me," I started, feeling a little ridiculous. "I know this is a total shot in the dark, but you wouldn't happen to have a spare foot or two I could borrow, would you? That oat milk up there is taunting me." He turned and a slow, easy grin spread across his face. His eyes, framed by amusement lines, crinkled at the corners. "Happy to assist a fellow short-shelf sufferer," he chuckled, his voice a deep, pleasant rumble. He strode over, reached up effortlessly, and plucked the box down. "You'd be surprised how often this happens," he added, handing it over. "You're a lifesaver, seriously," I laughed, tucking the oat milk safely into my cart. We exchanged a few more pleasantries, just a couple of strangers sharing a moment of grocery store camaraderie before we were about to part ways. That's when she entered the scene. You could feel her presence before you saw her. It was like a sudden drop in temperature or the unmistakable scent of privilege radiating through the dairy aisle. She was maybe 54, but carried herself with the stiff-necked certainty that could add a foot to anyone's perceived height. Her eyes, sharp and accusatory, immediately latched onto the tall guy, then flickered to me, then back to him, clearly putting together her own narrative. She marched right up to him, barely sparing me a glance. "Excuse me, yes, you, the tall one," she barked, her voice thin and sharp. "Can you grab me that gourmet yogurt from the very top shelf? And don't just stand around, I'm in a hurry." She gestured vaguely towards a shelf several feet away. The tall guy's easy smile faltered just a touch, but he remained polite. "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, "but I don't actually work here." Karen, who I'd instinctively already labeled as such, scoffed. "Don't work here, don't be ridiculous, I just saw you helping her." She pointed a bony finger at me as if my very existence was an accusation. "You're clearly an employee." "What kind of service is this? Get me my yogurt." "I was just assisting another shopper, same as anyone might," he explained, his tone still calm but with a subtle edge of firmness. "But I'm not on the clock, promise." "This is unacceptable," she practically shrieked, her voice rising, drawing the attention of a few other shoppers. "I demand to speak to your manager or just get me my yogurt." "You're clearly just being lazy and avoiding your duties." Her face was starting to blotch red, her entitlement boiling over. The tall guy's easy smile slowly, almost imperceptibly, morphed into something else entirely. His eyes, which had been merely amused, now held a glint of mischief that sent a little shiver of anticipation down my spine. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his jacket pocket. My breath hitched. What was he pulling out? He extracted a crisp, white clerical collar. Without a word, he popped it on, his demeanor instantly transforming from amused shopper to something utterly, completely different. A sudden, serene gravity settled over him, his posture becoming almost priestly. He looked at Karen, his gaze unblinking. "Very well, madam," he said, his voice now deep and resonant, utterly devoid of any humor. "If I truly work for you, then perhaps you need to get down on your knees and confess your sins. My boss, you see, expects true humility from his servants." The blood drained from Karen's face, leaving it a patchy, horrified white. Her jaw hung open, working soundlessly for a moment before she let out a strangled gasp. Her eyes, wide with shock, flickered between the man in the clerical collar and my gaping face. Without another word, she spun on her heel and practically sprinted out of the aisle, scattering other shoppers in her panicked wake. It was glorious. The moment she was gone, the tall guy burst out laughing, a booming, unrestrained sound that filled the now silent aisle. He pulled off the collar, his regular, easy smile returning. I was clutching my stomach, tears streaming down my face, utterly unable to contain myself. "Oh my God," I gasped between wheezes. "What was that?" He grinned, tucking the collar back into his pocket. "Just a little something I keep on me for special occasions," he chuckled. "I dabble in improv comedy." You get a lot of material in places like this, and sometimes you just gotta lean into it. We stood there for a good minute, just laughing together, two strangers united by the sheer absurdity and brilliance of what had just happened. We exchanged quick goodbyes, still smiling, and went our separate ways. But I tell you what, that guy wasn't just tall. He was a walking, talking masterclass in how to deal with an entitled Karen. Never underestimate the power of a well-timed prop and a dash of divine intervention, Redditors. It made my mundane Tuesday grocery run absolutely unforgettable.
This next one had Reddit losing its mind. Quick pause, subscribe now, because the chaos doesn't stop here.
Ever been minding your own business, just trying to get some damn beans, and suddenly find yourself in a bizarre shouting match with a grown man who seemingly hates short people? Yeah, me too. Caius here, and let me tell you, sometimes just existing in a supermarket as a vertically challenged individual feels like a combat sport. So I was in my usual haunt, the supermart of my nightmares, aka my local grocery store, on a quest for baked beans, top shelf naturally, because where else would they put the most essential item on the planet? I stared up at the elusive can, a tiny Everest in a sea of towering shelves, and sighed. I'm not exactly a giant, you know, more of a fun-sized human, which usually means a good 10-minute struggle with gravity, or more practically, asking for help. I spotted a guy nearby, probably in his late 20s, tall enough to dunk a basketball without jumping, seemed friendly. "Hey man," I said, a little sheepishly, pointing upwards. "Any chance you could grab that can for me?" "My arms aren't quite basketball player length," he chuckled, gave a quick, "No problem, dude," and with a stretch, plucked the beans right off the shelf. Easy peasy. I thanked him, feeling that little surge of humanity is good dopamine, and thought my shopping woes were over. I was so wrong. Just as the helpful stranger was walking away, a shadow fell over me. I turned to see this other guy, maybe in his 40s, slightly taller than me but nowhere near the previous guy's height, with a face like he'd just bitten into a lemon. And he was glaring right at me. "You know," he started, his voice a low growl that still managed to cut through the supermarket hum, "you really should be able to get your own groceries. Some people are just so lazy, expecting everyone else to do everything for them." My jaw almost hit the floor. "Excuse me," I stammered, holding up my can of beans like it was evidence of a crime. "I just asked for a little help. It's on the top shelf and I'm not exactly built for scaling mountains." He scoffed, taking a step closer, puffing out his chest. "That's no excuse, you need to learn to be more self-sufficient. Or maybe," he sneered, "you should just grow a bit. Some of us manage perfectly fine." He gestured vaguely at his own average height as if he were an Olympic gold medalist. Okay, now my blood was starting to boil. Who was this guy, the self-appointed height police? "Look man, I'm just trying to buy some beans. I'm not asking for your life story or your unsolicited advice on my genetic makeup." "Oh, so now you're rude too?" he practically yelled, his voice rising, drawing curious glances from a few aisles over. "You think you can just wander around demanding people wait on you hand and foot, then get snippy when someone points out your obvious flaws?" He was getting red in the face, practically vibrating with indignation. I swear he looked like he was about to snatch my beans. Before I could retort with something I'd probably regret, a new voice, calm but firm, cut through his rant. "All right, that's enough." I looked over. It was a woman, probably in her 50s, easily a head taller than both of us, with a no-nonsense look and a shopping cart full of what looked like industrial-sized cereal boxes. She walked right up to my tormentor, her presence radiating a quiet authority. "He asked for help, you offered unsolicited judgment, and now you're bothering a fellow shopper," she stated, her gaze unwavering. "He's not asking you for anything. And frankly, your opinion on his height or shopping habits is completely irrelevant. Move along." The angry man seemed to deflate a little, caught off guard by her directness. He mumbled something incoherent about lazy people and none of her business, but his conviction was gone. He shot me one last disgusted look, then huffed, spun on his heel and stomped off down the aisle, muttering under his breath. I just stood there blinking, holding my beans. Wow, was all I could manage. The woman gave me a small, kind smile. Some people just need to find someone smaller to pick on, kiddo. Don't let it get to you. It's all right to ask for help, she then gave a little wink, and for what it's worth, you're doing great. I thanked her profusely, feeling a rush of gratitude and honestly a bit of vindication. It's funny how a simple act of kindness from a stranger can completely negate the toxicity of another. Walking out of the store, my beans safely in my bag, I felt a little taller myself, not physically, of course, but in spirit. It reminded me that even if you're a short guy in a tall world, you don't have to navigate it alone. And sometimes, the best way to stand tall is to let someone else lift you up, literally or figuratively. Thanks for letting me vent, folks. Next time you see someone struggling to reach the top shelf, maybe just offer a hand. You might be saving them from a run-in with the Bean Baron of bitterness.
Caius out.
All right, Reddit, buckle up. You ever have one of those days where someone is so profoundly, hilariously wrong about something that you just have to pinch yourself? Because I sure did, and let me tell you, this woman wasn't just wrong, she was a masterclass in misplaced entitlement, all wrapped up in a package that thought I was the help. I'm Lucas, a senior PR manager, and usually my biggest headache is crafting the perfect press release. But this particular morning, I was set for an important client meeting at a pretty swanky, yet understated restaurant downtown. I got there a few minutes early, giving myself time to mentally prep and maybe enjoy the quiet before the corporate storm. The air was crisp, the city was just waking up, and I was feeling good, looking sharp in my best suit. As I stood by the entrance, scrolling through my notes, an elderly couple shuffled past me hand in hand, chuckling about something only they understood. It was a sweet, grounding moment. Then the double doors swung open again, and that peaceful vibe evaporated faster than a spilled coffee on a hot sidewalk. A woman strode in, or rather, marched in. Her heels clicked like tiny drumbeats of impending doom, her face set in a permanent scowl that could curdle milk. She was clutching a designer handbag, but her eyes, darting around with an almost predatory glint, landed squarely on me. Before I could even register her presence, she barked, "Excuse me, hold the door, please." My initial thought was, are you talking to me? I was clearly dressed for a business meeting, not a hospitality gig. But years of ingrained politeness kicked in, and I held the heavy glass door open, a silent "you're welcome" hovering on my lips. She swept past me without a glance, her expensive perfume leaving a trail of, well, expensive perfume and a faint whiff of condescension. Okay, that was rude, but fine, people have bad mornings. I followed her inside, heading towards the host stand, when suddenly a heavy wool blazer was thrust at me. Not handed, not offered, but aggressively pushed into my personal space. "Here," she commanded, her voice sharp as a tack, "hang this up and get me a menu, I'm waiting for a table." My hand instinctively reached out, catching the jacket before it hit the floor. My brain, however, was still trying to process what just happened. Did she just hand me her jacket to hang up? A slow burn started in my chest. I looked at her, then down at my tailored suit, then back at her imperious face. She didn't even notice my confusion. She was already striding towards an empty table near the window, plonking herself down like she owned the place. A kind, slightly flustered waitress, clearly new, approached Karen's table. "Good morning, ma'am, just one for today." Karen waved her away, her gaze still fixed on me as I stood there, dumbfounded, holding her jacket. "Oh, don't worry about it, honey. He'll be taking my order. Apparently he needs some customer service training himself." She eyed me with a sneer. "And you? What are you standing around for? My coffee, black, now." This was getting absurd. I blinked. My coffee? I wasn't even working here. I finally found my voice, a professional, calm tone I used for difficult clients. "Ma'am, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm actually..." She cut me off with an impatient flick of her wrist. "Oh, I know exactly what you are, young man. You're someone who thinks he can just stand around chatting all day instead of serving paying customers. Honestly, the standards these days. Just get the manager here and my coffee. I have a very important meeting scheduled." A very important meeting, that phrase echoed in my head. A light bulb slow to illuminate due to the sheer audacity finally clicked. Could it be? Was she my meeting? No, impossible. My clients were punctual and professional. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my colleague. "We're here, Lucas. Are you inside?" "Yes, I'm just a minute," I mumbled, still staring at Karen, who was now tapping her foot impatiently. The waitress, looking thoroughly bewildered, just hovered, unsure what to do. Karen, seeing my phone, snapped, "Don't ignore me. Are you going to get my coffee, or do I need to speak to the manager about your incredibly rude behavior right now?" I decided to try a different tack. A mischievous glint formed in my eye. Okay, she wants customer service. She's gonna get a masterclass in my customer service, the one where I pretend to be staff while simultaneously letting her dig her own grave. I walked over to her table, her blazer still draped over my arm. "Right away, ma'ams, black coffee, anything else for you?" I even managed a perfectly polite, if slightly strained, smile. She sniffed, clearly thinking she'd won. "And a menu, I'll need to review some options. I expect prompt service this morning. I'm interviewing for a position here, with the PR department, so I'll be keeping a close eye on your performance." Bingo. My colleagues Sarah and David walked in then, spotting me immediately. Their faces, initially confused by me standing next to a demanding woman holding a blazer, slowly morphed into bewildered amusement as they approached. "Lucas," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide, "what are you doing?" Before I could answer, Karen clapped her hands, addressing my colleagues. Finally, you must be from the PR department. I'm Karen. I believe we have a 10 o'clock interview." She gestured imperiously at the empty chair opposite her. "Please sit." "And you," she snapped, pointing at me, "my coffee. And then I'll need you to take away this rag," she said, flicking the blazer with a dismissive finger, "and fetch me a proper menu." Sarah and David exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated shock, then an equally pure, unadulterated moment of realization. David's lips twitched. Sarah's hand flew to cover her mouth, trying to stifle a giggle. They were my interviewers, not the restaurant's, not Karen's. Karen, sensing the sudden, awkward silence, looked from me holding her jacket to my two colleagues, whose faces were now a delicious mixture of horror and barely contained laughter. Her smug expression slowly, agonizingly crumbled. Her eyes, which had been so sharp, darted between our faces, seeing the expensive watches, the company lanyards tucked into pockets, the disbelief in their eyes. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Finally David, ever the diplomat, cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he began, his voice surprisingly steady, "I think there's been a slight misunderstanding. We're here for a meeting with Lucas. He's our senior PR manager." He gestured to me, still holding her blazer. Karen's face went from haughty red to a deep, mortified crimson. She looked at me, her mouth opening and closing like a goldfish. The blazer in my hand suddenly seemed to weigh a ton. I just offered her a bland, professional smile. "Would you still like that coffee, ma'am, or perhaps you'd like your jacket back?" She snatched the blazer from me with a furious, embarrassed yank, practically tripping over her own feet as she scrambled up. Without another word, without a backward glance, she practically ran out of the restaurant, leaving nothing but the faint scent of expensive perfume and the lingering echo of her humiliation. Sarah and David burst out laughing, loud and unrestrained. I couldn't help but join them, the tension finally breaking. The waitress, who had watched the entire spectacle unfold, just stood there, jaw dropped, before shaking her head and walking away, probably to share the tale in the kitchen. We spent the rest of our meeting recounting the story, trying to piece together how anyone could be so spectacularly oblivious. David even called the restaurant's host to discreetly inquire if anyone named Karen was scheduled for an interview with them. Nope, just us. I still shake my head thinking about it. I'm not sure if Karen ever landed a job in PR that day or any day after that, but I sure hope she learned a thing or two about customer service. And maybe, just maybe, about not treating people like they're beneath her. It's certainly a story I'll be telling for years to come.
Don't miss this next video, it's a good follow-up.